Okay. Welcome everyone. Welcome my young professionals. Welcome my panelists. Welcome and good evening to everyone. So I want to start by saying hello. My name is AJ Lotharp. I'm going to be the moderator for today's panel. I'm coming to you from Madison, Wisconsin by way of CUNA Mutual Group. And we are thrilled, excited to bring together this extraordinary panel of young leaders to discuss how they were able to achieve these leadership positions, tremendous influence, and reach the ranks that they have within the credit union movement at such a young age. On our panel today, we have Mr. Wesley D. Williams, the VP of Information Technology at Valley Star Credit Union, Miss Ashley Beach Reed, the Senior Manager of Lending Operations at Secu Credit Union of Maryland, Ms. Tracy Jackson, the Chief Financial Officer at Resource One Credit Union, Ms. Andrea Finley, CCUFC, CFEI, ABCDEFG, no, I'm just joking, and a Financial Wellness Coordinator, and Mr. Shelton Rolak, the Vice President of Communications at NASCUS. Welcome, everyone. So before I get started, I do want to say to everyone who's tuning in for this young professional session, number one, thank you for coming. Thank you for investing in yourself. If there's anyone that you feel could benefit from this, feel free to share the link to the live YouTube streaming that's going on right now. If you don't know how to find it, then you can just go to YouTube, type AACUC 2020, and I bet your bottom dollar to pop up. But also, join AACUC. It's great. We just gave away $50, some AirPods, an Amazon Echo Show all today. And it's only day 2. So guess what? It gets better. There's also a hat competition. So if you have any hats, you want to show off your personality, express yourself a little bit, you can also submit for the hat competition. That's on Saturday when the judging will go down. So, we get your lighting together, find your angles, get your hat, and make your submission. Participate. It's great. So let's get things started. Oh, one more thing. At AACUC, we're family. And I love my family, and I like to know where my family is. So if you feel comfortable, go ahead and let us know in the chats where you're tuning in from, whether that be the great state, which is Texas, born and raised. If you are on the far West Coast, California, the far East Coast in New York, wherever you are, wherever you're tuning in, let us know in the comments down below. Let us know the chats. And if you end up going to the YouTube, make sure you subscribe to AACUC 2020 so you can get all the updates and the latest content. There's hashtags. I know y'all are on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, whatever the case. Find them, use them. AACUC, AACUC 2020, CTC 2020, hashtag change. There's a million. You'll find them. Use them. But let's get into this. So I want to start by asking you a question. And I don't want things to be too solemn. So, when things change, when there's a passing, rather, you go to the upper room, okay? You go where the golden pearly gates are and you experience greatness. So don't be too sad or solemn with said topic. But with the recent passing of Mr. John Lewis, and he's reminded us of how many of our historic leaders were at a lot of pivotal points in history, marching across bridges in Selma, being hosed down in the streets, etc. And then rising to be senators and rising to these great positions of power and influence, And with this happening, as a young leader, for my panelists here, how have you assured that your voice is heard regardless of your age? And I want to start with my good friend, Miss Tracy. Miss Tracy Jackson. Let's start with you.
I know you was going to pick me. Hello, everyone. So what I like to think about is something that I keep at top of my mind is sticking to the facts and keeping the emotions out of it. I follow Kenny Burns on IG, so I saw that he had that on his wall in his office, and I'm like, you know what? I'm going to put that in my office. It's all too often that we come into meetings with people who are either older than us or maybe the same age of us, but Some of them are absolutely tied to that, the way it used to be. And sometimes you're not really able to be heard. And so sticking to the facts helps you to get your point across. You know, no one can take anything away from you as long as you stick to that.
I like that. I like that. Facts are definitely important. Mr. Wesley, how do you feel about the facts? How do you feel about this question?
Yes. So first, before I begin, excuse me, I got to give a special shout out to Miss Courtney A over there, my 2016 Crash the GAC compadre. So shout out to Courtney at Filene, and I think there's a couple other crashers on the call. So shout out to any GAC crashers. Yeah. So as a young leader, how have I assured my voice has been heard? So I'll give you guys actually three different ways. One, I would say step up to the plate when you're called on, right? There's going to be a lot of opportunities where you have the ability to step up and do whatever it is, fill a role. And you may not even know exactly what it is, but as Tracy says, you can learn, find the facts out, and then step up and just be ready to go to bat. I'd say number two, when you see something, say something. And y'all have heard that quote before, but what I mean is there's a lot going on in the world right now. And I think sometimes as young leaders, we feel like we may need to kind of have a backseat voice, if you will, and wait for someone else to step up and voice their opinion. And then we say, oh yeah, you know what? I like that. I'm going to go with that. Well, I would encourage you guys, if you see something, if you have a thought, I mean, as Tracy said, make sure you have the facts, but then say something about it. Be that leader, because I guarantee you there are going to be others who are going to enjoy or who can relate to what you have to say, and they're going to view your point as leading. And then lastly, I would say a key way in your roles where you can find your voice or have your voice be heard is look around you, find where there's inefficiencies, find where there's problems, but don't just find them, also figure out the solution. And then come to the table, whether that's to your manager, to leaders or others outside of your institution, and say, hey, I see this problem, I see this inefficiency, and here's the solution that I'm suggesting. And I guarantee you, when you do that, one or all of those things, your voice will be heard. I would encourage you all to jump on discussion boards if you're not. LinkedIn is important. Have these conversations where you can at your institutions, on social media.
I like that. I like that. I like that. There's a and I don't want to misquote you, but almost a sense of responsibility. Even though you are young, then you still have a voice. You still in those opportunities, to use your voice and to speak to those different things that you need to have seen, or different changes that are going on and whatnot. So I definitely like that. I definitely like that. Miss Ashley, we if anybody's been to AACUC, we know who you are. We know somewhat of what you've done. We recognize you and everything like that. So how would you say that? What are the well rather I would just instead of how would you say, what would you say are some of the things that you've done to ensure that your voice has been heard at such a young age?
So, what I would say is listen. A lot of times, I know that I have been in a situation where I've been quick to speak. Um, born and raised in New York, you always have to have a comeback. And one of the things that I've run into now is I need to take opportunity to really listen to what someone is trying to share with me. Um, Making sure that once I listen and I engage that person and I am spending time to understand them, then I'm in a situation where I can then share my thoughts and share my recommendations. And they're coming to me now to share what they have on their plate or what's going on. So I find that if you listen, you'll be in a situation where people are going to want to return that favor. So.
I like that. I like that. Returning the favor. So, almost putting in what you want to get out of it. That makes a lot of sense. Mr. Rolak, Mr. Shelton, my guy.
What's good, bro?
What you have for me on this topic here?
So, how do I make sure my voice is being heard? Is by maintaining my authenticity and my integrity, right? So, if you're authentic and if you maintain your integrity, people are more prone to listen to you. And when you have those detractors, like we often do, they're less prone to be listened to because you can stand on that authenticity and that integrity. So those are two things that I just, that I hold paramount that that have elevated me throughout my career.
I like that. I like that. They say always bring your whole self to work, be true to who you are and all of that. So I say it's good as a young professional to hear, someone else say that. Because I know sometimes my personality can be a lot, So hearing someone say, be true to yourself, be authentic and be genuine, that there's actually some validity and some truth to that. I don't know how many other young professionals here may battle with bringing their whole selves to work, or if they just so happen to be a minority in a majority setting. I don't know. But I definitely, I'll say it resonates with me. So in a sense of, being connected and having a sense of community, how has being connected to the AACUC impacted your leadership journey? And Andrea, I'm going to start with you for this one.
All right, thank you, AJ. So AACUC has been transformational for me. So I think I went to the conference last year and I actually met you and some other people that are here on the panel. And I've gotten so much out of it. The first thing I got out of it was mentorship. I found someone, was like, hey, I want you to be my mentor, like just like that. And sure enough, she and I have been tight ever since. But it's also given me the opportunity to mentor others. And one thing that I can say about AACUC is I'm surrounded by people who see things in me and push me to be the best version of myself. And that in itself is contagious. And I see myself doing that with other people as well. And I think that has just been the biggest thing for me is being pushed, but in a good way. We need to surround ourselves with people like that.
That's beautiful. They say that the cheat code to life is mentorship. The cheat code to winning in a professional setting is mentorship. And I'll say when it comes to having that that go get it spirit of, I want you to be my mentor. I definitely can agree with you on that one. Ashley, how about you? How has being connected to the AACUC impacted your leadership journey?
Well, I will say that one, the opportunity to really be engaged the way that I am in AACUC has been a blessing. I've met so many people. I mean, along with the mentorship, I've made some friends. I believe one is on the phone. I think I see Tish, one of the friends that I made. People think that we're related when we're together. So what I've gotten out of it is not only the representation that I saw, like it opened my eyes to what was possible. I never really thought that I was in a situation where certain things, I never thought that something was unattainable. If I put my mind and my thought to it, it just made it real. Being with people that not only looked like me, so they had the representation, but supported that type of advancement within the credit union industry, just from a professional standpoint. So it has been something that has been transformative as well. And I have made some relationships that have just been so impactful in a very short period of time.
That's a great response. That's great. Because I know my last and my first time attending the AACUC conference, I definitely made some connections in a short amount of time. So Ashley, Andrea, pretty much all the panelists and then some. So definitely making meaningful connections in a short amount of time. I can definitely see that. So Tracy, seeing as you've made it to C-suite, you're the CFO, and that you're still connected to the AACUC, how have you used that connection to help others along their leadership journey?
Well, I have to tell you, I've been a part of ACUC since 2007 officially, but 2006 is when I got my first exposure. And I've been around so many wonderful leaders who have pulled me through doors that I never imagined I would be in. I have my job today because of just that network of that. And I feel like it's my duty to make sure that my team, that my, the people I meet, like yourself and others, to help them along the way, pull them through, pour into them like the leaders have done for me, because I would not be in the C-suite at my age if it had not been for them.
And I appreciate all the pulling you've done. That's why I say, you're my auntie. We family.
I moved over to Texas for you.
Exactly. I'm gonna have to get down and we're gonna get some barbecue. That's what we're gonna do. So Wesley, you're running things in the IT department, you VP, you're making great things happen. So how has, I guess, both sides, because you're still rising, you're on your way to presidency if that's what you so choose to achieve. And you're still at the VP level, and I'm assuming that you're still learning things here and there. So how would you say that the pull has been for you from learning from leaders, and also the pulling that you've done to help younger professionals?
Wow, that's a lot. Let me just first say I appreciate you, AJ, for speaking that presidency into existence there. So I'll just go ahead and take that out of the atmosphere there. So yeah, as a VP, especially in IT, I'm always learning, right? People constantly say, Wes, wow, like you must be like smart and amazing, this and that. And I'm like, well, realistically, I feel like I'm less and less smart every day because, as all of you know on the call, technology is ever changing, right? So I think someone said this earlier, but it's a constant learning for me, a constant shaping of not only in a technology sense, but who I am as a person and as a leader. And so having mentors, having coaches is just invaluable, and something I would encourage everyone on the call. If you don't have those two things, notice I said mentor and a coach, right? A mentor is someone who is possibly in a role that you aspire to go to, or a role that is higher than yours and you would like for them to pour into you. You need to connect with those people, especially at your institutions. And second, you got to have a coach. This is something, I wish I would have done more of, but a coach is someone who's gonna, it's like in basketball, right? You have a coach of a team who's pouring into you as an individual, showing you how to use your strengths to best play with the other players. And it's the same thing in our professional lives, right? We need that coach. And so those are two things that I definitely would encourage everyone on the call to get if you don't have it. And really the question of how am I pulling people up? Really, it's what we see going on here in AACUC, and that is when given an opportunity to lead, I always try to find others who can step up to the plate and give them that opportunity, right? So for example, we have a men's chat that's going on after this call, and it would have been very easy for me to say, hey, you know what, I'm gonna just run the men's chat every day, I'll speak, do my thing. No, way you pull up and you give back. I stepped back and I called on some folks, some that I didn't even know, at various levels, and said, hey, would you be willing to step in and lead a men's chat session? And that gives them exposure to CEOs, to vice presidents, to all different kinds of people. And it really helps. And I think lastly, I'll just say that really try to highlight other people's strengths where you can. And so whenever there's an opportunity where I can say, hey, I know someone, I know a Tracy Jackson, or I know a Ashley Beach Reed, and they may have way more better answers or a better fit for whatever it is you got going on. I'm going to call on them and say, hey, I'd love to do what it is that you're asking me to do, but you know what? I've got someone even better. And it goes back to that first question you asked me of just how do we make our voice heard is when those opportunities come, you step up to the plate and you swing for the fences. So that would be what I'd say there.
I like that. So coaching, being able to give space to allow people to shine and, highlight what they're good at, while also taking on tasks where you can give people that space, to show off their own skills and their own talents. So since we're talking about coaching and basketball, Mr. Peloton, Mr. Shelton, Mr. Rolek, my guy. So let me ask you something. You have a trainer, right? With
Yes.
workout. Okay. So having a trainer, having a coach, is someone to pour into you, someone to coach you and mentor and guide you. So in a professional world, in a professional setting, how do you go about asking for a coach, or how do you approach asking someone to guide you in these different spaces?
That's a really good question. And thank you for asking it, because for me, it's all about organic relationships. I'm not one to just seek out people, just because it sounds good. It has to be an organic relationship, someone that really inspires you. The people that have coached me along in my career are like really dynamic individuals, like who have, some of them are professional coaches and others are just like people in the industry. But it's important for me to identify a coach and / mentor, because I recognize my limitations, right? That's why I have a trainer. That's why I have a dentist. If I could pull my own teeth, I wouldn't need a dentist. If I could clean my own teeth, I wouldn't need a dentist. But you got to seek out experts, right? Recognizing my limitations, like seeking out, words of wisdom from other people. There are so many people around you, especially in this space, who have so many different skills, right? Who have so many different offerings and like gems that they can like impart upon you. So it's always been incumbent upon me to kind of seek them out to gather that information. I think that makes me a lot stronger. And also to piggyback off Wesley's point, like the mentorship, I'm a big advocate for identifying a mentor, right? Like mentors in every facet of life. Mentor helped me buy my house. Mentor helped me sell my house, right? And I also look for mentors who are younger than me, because they offer a different perspective, right? Like, so sometimes as we, our friend group kind of ages with us and we kind of like, in that same space. So someone younger brings a different perspective. So I welcome the opportunity to connect with folks that are different from me, but still have information and value add. So.
I like the organic piece about that. So I'll be definitely sending you an email or a text message. We're gonna work something out. There's organic mentorship and all of that for the people that's tuned in. So networking, right? Networking can be organic. It can be in a setting such as the AACUC. It can happen online. You never really know. So you always hear about building your network and how important it is to have a network and all of these different things. So Miss Tracy, Miss Jackson, how do you build your network? How do you go about networking the right way, and versus if you're just collecting business cards all night? What's your approach to networking, and how do you know that it's successful?
I'm going to give a plug to Bert J. Hatch Jr. Hopefully everyone's aware of who he is. My very first CEO, favorite CEO, put that plug out there too. But his motto was that we were to go to conferences, seminars, or whatever, and we could not sit next to anyone we knew, which back then was pretty nerve-wracking for me. That took me completely out of my comfort zone, that I could not sit next to anyone I already knew. And I can tell you, I still do that to today. I will not sit with people I know. I will sit there. If I get to a room and I don't know you, by the time we're finished, I will know who you are. It gives you the opportunity to sit there and get to know that person and find the commonalities. And then you make a lifelong, network out of that, just to be able to have someone you can call on, a Shelton, a Wesley. I might have an IT question. Actually, a great example would be talking with Ashley last year at the conference. I had to approve some loans. I was in and out of the meeting. I was like, Ashley, I need to talk to you about this, right? Just to get a second, opinion. And so those are the meaningful ways of just kind of, for me, to do that, is to sit next to somebody I don't know and spark up a conversation.
Commonalities. That's nice. That's real nice. So Andrea, I remember when I met you last year. I was outside of the hotel and I was looking for one of those Uber scooters. I was gonna go for a tour around Charlotte, and I don't think it was working at the time. But Andrea, she was thinking about moving to Madison. If I'm not being put too much information out there. And so she knew that I was working at CUNA Mutual and whatnot. And so that was a commonality, that sparked a conversation. So Andrea, moving on to you.
Yeah.
How, with that take that I'm assuming that that's, generally how you go about networking or meeting people, you find something to talk about and it branches from there. So how do you know when you successfully made a connection versus just one of those high and buy type things and then you never talk to the person again?
So my approach for networking is definitely kind of like you said, like our story, as far as everyone has something, at least one thing in common. It might take more work to figure out what that one thing is. And when networking, I don't immediately start with, well, what do you do? Right? Because it's, it's cut and dry. Those type of conversations that start like that will often end with the hi and bye, and you don't have a real connection. Versus just in Stacy and Letitia's session last night really made me think about this, is we're human first. And so try to find that human connection, and you never know what that may blossom into later on. So definitely that's my approach, if you will. And then another thing is starting with, go into it not seeking to receive something, but seeking to give. So what can I possibly give? Who can I possibly connect this person with that they may need to know? A lot of times I'm just the bridge for people, and I'm like, hey, I know you, but they've gone on to make deeper connections or have a mentorship with someone else. So if we all just kind of go into it as, what can I give, then eventually we'll all be taken care of.
Okay, giving. I like that. Giving. Not receiving, not taking, but giving. So Ashley, I have a question for you. So last year at the conference, you were pretty much over the whole young professional experience. You were the go-to. When I saw you, I was like, hey, Madam President, how are you? I want to do what you're doing, all of these different things. But not speaking from my point of view, but more so from your point of view, being in that position of young professional president, experiential leader, whatever you would like to call it. So say someone was trying to have a conversation with you, or you're trying to get to know someone and they're either getting hung up on your title and trying to see what you can do for them, or when you're trying to get to know someone and you can't necessarily find a commonality, like it's kind of awkward, maybe they're not opening up. Like, how do you handle those conversations?
So one, we talked about before, my goal is to really listen, right? Get to know the person, what their passions are, what their desires are. Rarely do I start with speaking about myself. And on top of it, some people will not agree with this, but I am a classified introvert. So it takes work for me to be in a situation where I'm really doing like large groups of people. I really like intimate connections. So if I find I'm in a situation where I'm not able to connect with the person from a professional standpoint, there is always something, whether it's me looking at what they have on or certain things, maybe what type of phone they have, if they're an Android person versus iPhone, right? Having those type of things, but really just make it about them. If I find that someone is in a situation where they're just really looking for what they can get from me or what I potentially can give them, I really like what Andrea said. I'm in a situation where if I have something to give, like I operate and I live my life with an open hand policy, right? So if your hand is clenched, then nothing can come in, right? And nothing can go out. But I really want to be at a situation where I'm able to give as well as receive. So I operate from that space always. So that's kind of how I would approach that. I don't necessarily feel like, oh, someone's trying to steal my light. My light is there. It's going to shine regardless. You can't take it away from me. And if I find that it's become difficult to connect with someone, I do like for there to be genuineness. So I just do my best to really understand them and who they are.
Genuine. I think I heard that from someone else before. Someone with a balder head might have brought up being genuine. But no, that's really good. That's really good. And finding out about someone and all of that, it kind of reminds me of this place called Filene. Like, I don't know how many people here are familiar with Filene, but Filene, they do some great research. They look into a lot of different things, a lot of different topics, and they want to expound on whatever that topic is to really develop an understanding and a space where people can get understanding on whatever said topic is. So we have someone here with us from Filene, Miss Courtney. Miss Courtney, go ahead. You want to say hey to the people? Let them know you're here.
Hi, everyone. So happy to be here.
We're happy to have you. So I have a question for you.
Yes.
So what would you say is one of the biggest barriers or roadblocks as a young professional? And how have you overcame those barriers?
Oh gosh, that is an excellent question. And I think the biggest challenge comes to whether or not you are going to control your environment or if you're going to let someone else control your environment. And so basically what I mean by that is if you have a plan, something that you want to accomplish, and you go to your boss, a leader, a mentor, or coach, and you don't really feel like you're getting the support that you need, sometimes you need to be your biggest cheerleader. And you need to really do some of that work yourself, because no one is going to be your cheerleader if you're not. So I feel like that is something that, as I've gone through my career, from the credit union to Filene, it always hasn't been super smooth. And the only thing that I can rely back to is my own determination to get where I want to go, and finding the resources that I need that are going to help me get there.
That's nice. That's really, really nice. Being your own advocate, because, sometimes you like having people on your side. That's normal.
Absolutely.
Yes. Like having a team around you, having your buddies, it's normal wanting people around you to really, be on your side. And, you want to tell them like, hey, I did this and hey, I did that. And it feels nice to have a pat on the back, and that's not always going to happen. So I definitely agree that being your own advocate and patting yourself on the back is definitely beneficial, as to overcoming some of those things. So, Mr. Wesley, my IT guy, my VP brother, what would you say was one of your personal roadblocks as a young professional, and how did you overcome that?
Well, I'm gonna have to give you three. So I've had several roadblocks over the course of time. One is just experience and training. I think everyone on the call as a young professional can probably relate to that, especially if you've applied to a job lately and they want 3 to 5, 5 to 10, 15 years of experience, so that's definitely been a roadblock there. Number two is victimization. All right, so what do I mean by that? I think as young well, let me speak for myself, and maybe you guys can relate with me. As a young professional, I found myself in this victim mode, like woe is me, because I wasn't given an opportunity for X, or I wasn't given this promotion, or I didn't get this job. And so I began to feel like a victim and start really, in my mind, making excuses. And you can get yourself in a bad place. I've gotten myself in a bad place mentally by becoming a victim, because like Courtney said, if I'm letting someone else control my environment, it's very easy to become a victim. So that's a roadblock. And the third one I'll give you is purpose and passion. What I mean there is, it took me, I would say, into this role before I really figured out what my purpose and passion is. And I say that's a roadblock because as a young professional, if you don't know what that is, then it's very hard to figure out what moves to make as you go along your journey, right? If I'm passionate about IT, well, it may be very easy for me to then go find those mentors, find those coaches that we talked about to help pull me forward, right? But if I don't really know what lane I'm in or where I'm trying to go, then it's a roadblock, right? And you may wonder like, well, why can't I get this? Or why am I not able to transition here? And it may be because you just need to figure out what your purpose and passion is, so then you can go full force into that. And like I said before, I can't give you the roadblocks without giving you how to move past them, right? It's the same thing as I talked about before, problem and solution. So how did I move past those? One, I would say that sometimes going back to what Courtney said, you got to create your own environment. And so if you talk about experience and training, ask your job. Don't be afraid to ask your boss and your job to go to conferences. I've written up numerous reports of just saying, here's where I want to go. This is what it's going to cost. And this is the benefit that it's going to give back to the organization. And sometimes I've had to create it for myself. I've had to pay for my own coaching or pay for my way to go to AACUC, for example. And you have to just be okay with that. I think too is knowing yourself. So when we talk about purpose and passion, to get over that roadblock, let me encourage everyone on the phone, if you haven't, everyone on the line, take a self-assessment. There's plenty out there. You got to know yourself. You got to know your purpose and your passion. And trust me, that's going to help you get over a lot of roadblocks, because then you can go forward talking about who you are, you know what strengths you bring to the table, and you know how you're going to impact the organization every day.
I gotta say, you got the comments jumping. Okay, the chat is booming right now.
Let me tell AJ, if y'all haven't figured it out, I'm very passionate about young professionals, and I love this conversation, and I love having this dialogue. So forgive me, but I have to put it out there.
Hey, no, nothing to forgive you for. Okay, if anything, it's appreciated. Okay, so Tracy, I have a short question followed by a longer question. Short question is, are you following your purpose and passion? Are you in your purpose and passion?
Yes, is the short answer. I have to say, I've been in the industry for 15 years, and I remember my first and only CFO, Adrian Johnson, chairman right now, currently of AACUC. I worked for him for about 10 years. And I remember my first year working with him, we would go out and we would do education, financial literacy for the high schools in Baltimore. Any Baltimoreans on the chat? What's up? So I gotta plug my city. So, and he said to me as we were walking into one of the schools, he said, "I see you one day being a CFO." I knew from the moment I heard that man speak and introduce himself and talk about the economy, that was my passion. That's what I wanted to do, and that's what I wanted to be. And I'm here.
Okay. So, and I know, you just finished undergrad a few years ago,
Yeah.
And so when you graduated, right, you got your degree, you walked across the stage and you entered into this professional lifestyle. What steps did you take to try to find your purpose and your passion? Were you already in it? Like, were you one of those people who were like little, it's like, I'm going to do finance. That's my thing. And then you went to school for finance and you graduated and now you're a CFO? Or did it take some time to figure it out? What did that journey look like for you?
My journey was definitely guided and blessed by God for sure, because 2005, I graduated from undergrad, and I said I didn't want to do any more school. I just wanted the government job, but I needed an internship. And so I ended up at MECU under the leadership of Bert Hash and some other great leaders at MECU. And being there really helped spar that, because I was in operations. Had to tell you, my first 12 months at MICU, I realized that credit unions weren't for me. And then when I got to my next 12 months, I absolutely fell in love with the idea of what we do at credit unions, what we do for our community. And so from there, I went from operations to e-commerce, from e-commerce to finance, and lived there for the next 10 years. And so being a part of the different meetings, that I was the youngest person in the meetings, with my board being there, or with, just the CEO, the COO, and having that experience fed more into me that this is the direction I needed to be in.
Okay. I like that. So, it was feeding into you. There was a lot of development opportunities, space for you to find out what you did and didn't like, what wasn't for you. So, it's a true journey, not one of those just like, oh yeah, I woke up, they offered it, made it happen, done. So I can resonate with that. So Ashley, I have a question for you. Seeing as you were the former president of the Young Professional Experience at last year's conference, when you hear the phrase lift as you climb, that whole pulling and pushing thing that we were talking about earlier, and when you look at that phrase and you examine your own success, what would you say were some of those important moments? Like, can you give an example of a true time where you really felt like as you were climbing that someone was pulling you and you were also lifting someone as you were making that journey?
Yeah, it actually happened recently, because as much as I operate from that place, I never really pay attention to me doing that. And we've had a lot of changes at our organization, and some movement that we've had. And I had one of my team members, even in this pandemic, say, hey, when things get a little bit better, can we go to lunch? And I'm like, okay, sure, no problem. And we're sitting down and we're at lunch, safely apart from each other. And she's just like, I just want to tell you thank you. And I was thrown off, like, what are you talking about? And she brought up that as these changes had been happening, it was only because of me pulling her into certain things and giving certain experiences and dropping her name on multiple occasions did she move into the role that she moved into. It wasn't intentional. It was just kind of, she said this is what she wanted to do. And so I did what I could on my end. And it hit me that a lot of times I was measuring my success on the accomplishments that I made. And she's just like, I want you to know and take into consideration that there are people that are in the roles that they're in or accomplishing what they've accomplished because you speaking life into something that they maybe didn't even think was an opportunity for them. And that was probably like my last kind of recollection of being in a situation where I was unintentionally pulling someone else. Like, I truly believe when you walk, there's a reason why your hands swing, front to back, is because, at some point, one hand is in the front, one hand is in the back. And so you should be walking like that, in the sense of bringing somebody along with you, as well as reaching for someone who is obviously had already gone before you. So.
That's powerful. That's powerful. And if I'm not taking it too far, it sounds like you're somewhat saying walk with a purpose.
Absolutely.
In a way that you're bringing those with you, but you're also being able to take what others are giving you, being able to receive it, rather. I won't say take, receive.
Yeah.
So Shelton, Mr. Rolek, what would you say? Well, I won't ask what would you say. So we're talking about a lot of cycles here, a cycle of pulling, a cycle of pushing, a cycle of being there for other people, and being available in the sense of receiving things and giving things. So if you could go back 5 years ago what advice would you give yourself?
Yeah, I would. And 5 years ago, I think I need to preface this by describing where I was 5 years ago. I come to credit unions a little bit different. I come from credit unions on the policy side, and so I worked at a policy at a credit union trade group, working on public policy, doing lobbying. And if I could go back 5 years ago, I was the only Black person in the room a lot of times, right? Only Black person in the room at work, only Black person in the room when I went to meetings. And it was just a space where I just felt almost very unsafe. Yeah. And that's fair to say that I felt very unsafe. I felt very exposed. And I felt the need to assimilate and accommodate to get to the next space. And while doing that, I was stalling myself. I was blocking myself. So I made a quick turn, got involved with this group, made a quick turn and became my authentic self, right? Just showed up as Shelton, right? Not showed up as what the organization needed Shelton to be. Of course, professional wise, I was what the organization needed me to be, but showed up as truly myself. And so that's the advice I would give myself 5 years ago, is to definitely be authentic. And I think that like through that authenticity, that strengthens your character, right? And so your character is what you have at the end of the day. Your reputation is what you have at the end of the day. And so when people know that you're authentic and that you have character and a good moral standing, then that carries you a lot farther than trying to assimilate and accommodate your way through. And so that's what I would tell myself. In order to truly, truly get to the space you want to be, you got to be yourself, because people can see through your mess, right? They can see when you're not, right? So just be yourself and everything else will fall into place.
Authenticity. The man said it.
Yes.
Authenticity. Be yourself. Be your whole self.
Whole self.
Because, not only from a professional standpoint, as Shelton said, he was hindering himself almost by trying to assimilate. But I'm sure that even from like a mental health standpoint, from an emotional health standpoint, that did a lot for you once you started walking in your own footsteps, as opposed to trying to be whom you thought they wanted you to be.
Exactly. And especially, with the incidents, the racial incidents that happened in May, I could not, and I do communication. So what I do, my voice speaks for my organization. So I try to be very careful with my words, careful on social media, LinkedIn, everything like that. So I have a very, when I'm thinking, when I'm talking, even on this panel, I'm thinking about representing my organization, representing my CEO. That's very important to me. But at that point, when that happened, that forced me to break that shell and truly start to express how I felt, like in this country, how I felt at work about various things. And I was pleasantly surprised at how welcoming my organization was, how welcoming my CEO was to those thoughts, how welcoming in fact, the credit union community has been to those thoughts. So authenticity wins the day again.
Thank you. I appreciate it. So Courtney, I have a quick question and then I have a longer question for you. So quick question is, in your current role, how long have you served in this role?
This role, I started officially in, November of 2019.
Okay. So a little new, still adjusting.
Yep. I've been at Filene for just over 2.5 years though. So I've done a few different things at the organization.
Okay. So Filene for about 2.5, current role coming up on a year, you know. So if you could go back, we'll say 3 years, a little bit before you came to Filene, what advice would you give to yourself?
Oh, that's an excellent question. I was moving at the time from Southern California to Madison, Wisconsin to take the job at Filene just around this time last year, just starting to. So I think some advice that I would give myself is to stay more connected with my friends and family back home. That's been a real challenge since I've moved across the country. learning a new role and just kind of diving into the industry in a whole different way, having worked at a credit union previously for almost 7 years. I think I did myself a disservice by not staying connected. And I think I could have stayed slightly more grounded, as well as felt a little more human throughout the process, which was pretty hard to do when you're transitioning from working in a contact center, and then it's like, okay, now you travel 75% of your day. I really lost a little bit of myself in that because I just was disconnected from so many people through that process. So kind of just the theme of yesterday's conversation with Letitia and with Stacy is making sure that you do stay connected in a way that's very meaningful and really powerful. And through the pandemic, that's actually a shift that I've started to make as well.
Okay. So would it be fair to say that the advice that you'd give yourself is being very intentional about the connections that you make and how you nurture those? Would that be fair?
Yeah, you said it better than I did.
Well, no, I'm just trying to make sure, I get an understanding.
No, that's perfect.
Cool. So with those connections, when you say that you want them intentional and you want to nurture them, have you ever has there ever been a time where you've made a connection and then you lost it, or it wasn't as strong as you thought it was, and then you made an effort to bring it back, to get that connection back and really solidify it? And if so, can you tell us about this time?
So what I would say to that is a little column A, a little column B. There have been situations where I've reached out and tried to cultivate a relationship with a mentor, where we both sort of just let it fizzle out, and we recognize that at, a few years later, but neither one of us were really at the point in time where we still thought that that would be a great connection. What I would say with relation to just staying more deeply connected with friends and family is, one thing that I've started to do is, if I find I'm getting distracted from work, working from home has been interesting, and not traveling has been interesting. Instead of just picking up my phone and doing something like going to social media, what I try to do is actually pick up the phone and reach out to someone that I know very specifically. And then the other thing that I've also been doing is, if someone reaches out to ask me for a question, I'll actually just send them back my calendar and say, hey, just pick a time on my calendar and we'll just have a phone call. And I've done that with a few people on this conference. And honestly, that's just really helped to rejuvenate me in general. And it's helped me create new connections and even deeper connections with some of those people, just by setting up a phone call. And it could be as quick as 15 minutes. And sometimes it's gone over much longer than 15 minutes. So that would be my advice.
That's some really sound advice. That's some really good advice, because I've definitely had connections where I was just like, well, haven't talked to him in a while. Yes, I'll I don't know, do something else. So
I mean, and sometimes just calling that out is like, man, I'm sorry I let this go, and sort of take ownership of that. And I think that people are just more receptive to that too, because then again, you have some common ground to work up from as well.
I agree. So before I open this up for Q&A, any of my panelists, is there anything that you want to revisit? Any final words of wisdom? Any thoughts that you want to give out before we go into this Q&A?
I just want to share one piece of advice that was actually given to me several years ago. It was probably more than 5 years ago. It was back when I was working at a bank and I was helping an older Black lady. She was so sweet, and I literally only had one interaction with her, but it was so powerful that I wrote down what she told me, and I still have that shredded piece of paper in my collection box, if you will. But she looked at me, because I was just out of school, just started working. She said, you know what, young lady, always remember this: your personality will take you further than any dollar. And like, that just really resonated with me, because I'm like, what does she mean? What is she talking about? But as years go by, I would see it in practice, and I would see where, you know, someone would hit a ceiling or hit a wall, and it was because you got a bad attitude. Nobody wants to work with you, no matter how many degrees you have or how many accolades you have, right? But people are more willing to give grace and give that extended hand for opportunity when you do have, when you're your authentic self, like Sheldon was saying, right? When you have your moral compass, when there is no question about what you stand for and who you are, when people see you coming and they're like, oh yeah, that's AJ, I already know what he's about, right? That in itself will open the door to have the hands reach out to you, like Ashley was talking about, and just all of those different things. Or thinking back to Tracy's relationship with Adrian and him speaking that into her life, he had to have seen something. I'm sure if she had, why are we going to this school again? I don't want to do this, or whatever the case may be, that probably wouldn't have happened. So I just wanted to share that with everyone because it's really been impactful for my life. And, you know, you can tweak it how you want to, but it can be applied anyway. It's either your personality will take you than any dollar or any degree or whatever the case may be. But I just felt like I needed to share that with you guys.
We definitely appreciate it. And once again, you know, you got the comments section jumping. The chat is on fire right now. So we definitely appreciate those words, Andrea. I was scrolling through the chat and I did see one question. I'm assuming, Wesley, that this one might be for you. Someone asked, what personality assessment would you recommend that they take, or possibly for their team? So if you have any thoughts on that.
Oh yeah, you know I got some thoughts. So if somebody wants to put this in the chat, so you can take a DISC assessment, DISC. The second one is there's a Myers-Briggs Strength Finders assessment I would recommend. And then the third one I recommend is getting that coach that me and Shelton talked about. That's the assessment, because like Shelton said, you pay for the coach and they're going to show you where your strengths are, your weaknesses, and they're going to help you to fine tune those things and help you to see things that you can. And the beauty about a coach is most of the times they'll take you through a self-assessment first and then unpack it with you. So it's like the best of both worlds.
That's great. We appreciate it. Someone said Wesley for 2020. I second that motion.
I don't know about the United States. If y'all talking about the United States, I think I'm a little late for that game, but I'll take the credit union president. If one of y'all got that, let me know.
All right, so we have time for one more question. This one I'll direct towards Ashley. Someone asked, what is the future of credit unions and how can I position myself to be a leader in that space?
Future of credit unions. I think the future of credit unions really is going to be a situation where they are reaching out past. I think when some people think about credit unions, they only think about one specific thing, whether it's savings or low rates. They're not always thinking about, like, this is where I can do everything that I need to do, learn everything that I need to learn about financial well-being. So to me, the way and direction that the credit union space is going is leading the charge on being financially healthy, as well as being an inclusive environment. Now, in regards to how they can build it, it's strategic in anything that you're doing in reference to creating a career that really just shows your value, right? Because your value is there. It's just a matter of what you want to show on the outside. I think it really just depends on you finding that passion and purpose, right? And having grace with yourself while you figure that part out. And then connecting yourself with people who have already just a few steps ahead of you, right? That doesn't mean that you can't make a connection with a CEO, but let's look at somebody who really is just taking those next couple of steps. Talk to them. Talk about what mistakes that they've made, right? What really good advice they have. And then find someone a little bit further out.
Well, thank you, Ashley. I appreciate it. And I'm sure everyone else that's tuned in today appreciate it. And all of you wonderful panelists, all of you have amazing perspectives. We all appreciate everything that you've poured into us. You're all inspirational, amazing. Shelton, don't think I forgot about you. We're going to have a conversation. But yeah, so thank you everyone for tuning in. Don't forget that there are other AACUC events going on throughout the rest of the week. And with that, I'll leave you to it. Thanks for tuning in, everyone.
So proud of you, AJ.
Thanks, Ashley. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Hi, this was great, AJ. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrea.
Thank
You're
you, AJ.
amazing.
You're the best man.